G'day everyone, it's Dr. Joe here, and I'm doing the November Campaign Cartographer Challenge from the Facebook group, and that is to create a 10-room small dungeon. So what I've done is I'm selecting a black and white dungeon. I'm starting by making sure that I've got a 5-foot grid, and I'm just drawing a little room here. And then I'm going to draw a wall around it and get that all set up. But what I'm going to do different is I'm going to show you how to use what we call the circular array tool. So there you go. There's one of the cells for this little dungeon I'm creating. I'm going to draw now a circle in the middle, and that is only going to be temporary. That circle there is so that I can plan the center of my rooms. So I've now got a good idea where the center is going to be. Now I use the circular array tool there. I select all the elements that I want. Making sure I unselect, of course, that center. I click Do It. 8 spokes with the center array right in the middle of that circle right there. And done. So bingo, now I've got, and I'll delete the pieces I don't need now. And you can see I've got my array of cells. Now I'm going to draw an unusual shaped room that connects each of those endpoints of each of those cells, and I'm using the connect to endpoint modifier. So there's an unusual room shape. To draw the wall around that floor, I'm going to copy the floor, doesn't matter where I copy it to. I'm then going to use the change properties button, click on the new floor I created, do it, and I'm going to set the layers to walls, and I'm going to set the sheets to walls. And then I'm going to check the fill style to being solid, and I'm going to change it to black. And finally, last but not least, I'm going to change the wall width to 1 foot. And bingo. So that is how you can draw a complex floor and then just copy the walls, copy it, and then make it into walls. And as you can see, that's a nice quick way of rather than having to trace around it. Now, again, we'll speed up, and I'll just quickly put all the symbols in. Yes. I know you know how to do a lot of this stuff, so I thought I'd just make it nice and quick and easy for us. Okay, now I've actually made a slight mistake there because though that outer wall is now blocking some of those doorways. So I'm going to freeze all of the walls, sorry, everything but the walls. I'm going to delete that outer wall now, and I am actually going to then draw it in manually, making sure that I've got a wall width slightly smaller than 1 foot. 0.75 feet should be about right. And again, I can use the endpoint tools to make sure that I'm connecting just to the endpoints I want. And that way, as I draw around it, I'm not going to be covering up the doors. So 2 ways. You can create a wall around a floor, a complex floor, quite quickly. Or in this particular case, because we've got these strange doors connecting to it at odd angles, it's probably easier for us, well, it's actually more accurate for us to do it this way. So you can see, always use that node endpoint modifier. We'll just quickly zip through that. There we go. Draw around the outside of it. Perfect. Let's finish putting in some more of the pieces of art. Nearly done. And now for the font. So I'm setting the font to something nice and mappy, making it slightly large, and then I'm just going to use the font placement tool. Now, here's a nice little trick for when you're trying to put a key onto a map. What we're going to do, just making sure that all the walls are on the right layers and the right blurs are set for this resolution. Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay. Now, watch carefully here. When I click on properties, I'm going to make sure that those numbers are aligned top left. And then when I put the rest of the key on, and I actually do a little mistake here, I apologize, but you'll see why I'm doing it this way. So we put all the room names there. What I should have done, and I'm going to click the property modifier, property text, is change that to top right. And that way, I can align the numbers left and the text right. I'm going to put in my title. Nope, I've missed the number 8, so I can just quickly pop that in. Everything lines up. Perfect. Okay, now I'm outputting this to a PNG file, and then I'm going to use PhotoDonut to quickly bring it in and do a little bit of automated post work. This is actually a master mapping tool which I developed. It's a custom, what we call filter. It's a programmatic filter. And then I'm going to output that and bring it into Photoshop because I want to put a lovely texture behind it. So to do that, I will create an additional layer under my image. I will then load in the new PhotoDonut version of that image. And I'm popping a piece of paper down there. Now you can't see it because it's on the layer below where my image is. But if I then use the multiply layer command, you can see that now my map sits over the top of this lovely paper texture. But I'm not overly happy. So I'm going to place another sheet of linked paper underneath that. And I want something that looks a little bit more. There's the one. Look at that. And we'll just draw that out. Get it into the right position, roughly the right position. And I can delete the previous piece of paper because we're not going to need that anymore. And then I'm going to adjust the levels of this paper so that it is not overly bright. There we go. You can just tweak with this a little bit. Don't just use brightness and contrast when you're trying to put paper maps underneath your maps. Use the levels. You get a lot more control and it looks a lot more natural. And there you go. There's our lovely Photoshop version. So I'm going to render that out now as yet another PNG at high resolution. And then I'm going to use FilterForge to do the very last little bit of processing. This is just another little time-saving tool. And bring in that image, applying various programmatic filters. But the one that I want is this grunge frame. And I'm just going to adjust it so it looks like that this is a torn piece of paper. And there you go. We're all done.